place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Merlin. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna win. When happy, it's we, when mad, it's them. It's the same place, Merlin. Sri Lanka cricket, we gon' represent. So tell a friend.
Welcome to the Merlin. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by my cousin, the Professor of Cricketology, Dominic Machado, and Sri Lanka's premier cricket historian, Nicholas Brooks. I'm in London, Dom's in Boston, Nick's in London as well, but the other side, he's in South London, I'm in North London, thankfully for me. We're meant to be talking about what should have been an emphatic win and historic and memorable win for Sri Lanka in the Women's World Cup against New Zealand. However, it's turned out to be a slight bit of a disaster for Sri Lanka, because the game, Sri Lanka batted well, and then the rain came and New Zealand were unable to bat, so there was no result for the game, meaning that we have got 1 point from it. And off our 4 games that we've played since May, or should have played since May, only 2 of them have been completed, which were 2 losses against India, or a loss against India and a loss against England. So it's making it really difficult now for Sri Lanka to try and progress through to the next stage. They're going to need a lot of a huge slice of serendipity if that's going to happen. But we thought we'd do this, because, you know, the Merlin is your place to vent, it's your place of therapy, it's your place to be among friends, group chat, whatever, all that good stuff that we normally have. And secondly, I thought it was worth talking about how good we were with the bat today, because there might not have been any massive scores, but there was lots of promising things. Dom, you're nodding along frantically there. I'll come to you first. What was the thing that impressed you the most about our batting?
The thing that impressed me the most was Nilakshi De Silva. She is in the form of her life. She batted well in the warm-ups. She batted well in the India-South Africa tri-series, and she's batted well in every match. But to score a 50 in 26 balls, the fastest of this World Cup, I believe the previous fastest was 34. She was fantastic. And I think one of the things that she embodies to me is a player who's figured out her game. She's a leg side dominant player. She loves playing those cross-batted shots, those little dinks behind square, but she was able to use them to good effect. And she just looked like a player who had a game plan, and she took an innings that at times looked a little bit on the lifeless end and added a much needed spark to it. And that's what we were all hoping for. That's what we wanted to see, win, lose, or draw. And they gave it to us. Hopefully that kind of innovation, that attacking, that intentful cricket. I think we also saw that from some other players like Harshita and Kavisha and Hasini and Chamari. Seeing that throughout the lineup was really inspiring. And I think it bodes well for these next few matches. I think, one of the things I was doing after the match was checking the tables and seeing, okay, what results do we need to go our way in order for us to get where we want to get?
Yeah, Nick, before we get to kind of the table situation, let's talk a little bit more about the batting, because while it was going on, the three of us and Estelle, who's away with the BBC today, we're talking about the game in our group chat, and I said this felt a bit pedestrian while we were batting. That kind of flourish at the end, the 50 that Nilakshi got off not very many balls, kind of made it feel quite good. But while it was happening, it didn't feel that great. But actually, on hindsight, when I look back at the scorecard now, I'm like, there's a lot of good things going on there, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to come and sprinkle a little bit of pessimism here. Because, look, it took Nilakshi De Silva playing an outstanding innings to get Sri Lanka up to a score which is par or slightly better than par. There are good things throughout the innings, like Chamari getting a bit of form back, Vishmi scoring some runs. But New Zealand were woeful in the field, right? They dropped about 17 catches. They missed 2 reviews or twice they should have reviewed and it would have been out. I thought Vishmi chewed up far too many dot balls and just didn't quite show enough intent to rotate strike. Like Chamari, I don't like seeing her get out in that way. I don't think she should be looking to like manufacture things that early in an innings. I want to see her batting long and going big. And actually, like, I kind of felt watching this innings that on another day, had things gone slightly differently, Sri Lanka could have ended up scoring less than 200. So while it ended up looking good and being good, it felt like there were a lot of marginal moments and it could have been a lot worse.
So I'll explain my comments then. So while it was going on, I kind of felt like this is a bit lackluster. I still think that there's an issue with us playing 50 overs. I don't think we've really adapted to it, or they're trying to adapt to it in kind of real time almost. I think that's why Chamari was especially when Vishmi down the other end, who just, you know, that was a laboured 40.
Yeah.
41 of 83 balls, I think it is. That was quite laboured. So I think she probably felt a little bit of pressure in the 21st, 22nd over to start maybe trying to go for a little bit. So I kind of could understand that. I think there is a bit of a pacing issue. Harsh there for me. No one will. No, she won't get many column inches, but she looked absolutely incredible. Actually, on Saturday as well. Hasini Pereira looks absolutely great. You just feel that it's so gutting that we played no cricket coming into this from May, because you kind of feel if they'd done that, we'd be at this place where we're at kind of now 2 or 3 games ago, and we might
maybe that's enough to beat to win those 2 matches.
Because you look back at the India game, we lost by 59 runs. That's not much at all, right? That's everyone getting 6 more runs. I want to talk about Vishmi a little bit more, because I mean she breaks into the side, or she gets selected for an under-19s squad when she's like 14 or 15 years old. I can't remember when, for like scoring something like 400 odd runs off like 100 balls. Yeah, and you're like 125 balls or something crazy like that. And you're like, right, I understand you're playing against 14-year-olds. But you are showing no intent at this moment in time. I don't know. I'm slightly worried that she's just kind of the mentality is she's a bit lost in playing international cricket, because at points she looks so uncomfortable being out there. We know that she can play at this level. I think there's something else. I get the impression there's something else going wrong. I feel bad talking about this because she's a very young girl. There's a lot of pressure on her, and you know, maybe she's just in bad form, and some, you know, that happens to cricketers. That's not a bad thing. But the fact that we're seeing her score so slow, doing a kind of Jeff Boycott impression today, wasn't great, was it, Nick?
No, and I think you're right to kind of preface this by saying, Marky, that Vishmi is 20. She's you know, there's a lot of pressure on her shoulders, and I think there's no doubt that she's going to be a star. I'm a huge Vishmi Gunaratne fan. I always want to watch her bat, but I think intent is the crucial word, right? I was kind of struck by how many forward defenses we saw in that power play, and it wasn't actually just from Vishmi, it was from Chamari as well. I felt that Chamari was kind of doing like a bit of a Dre Russ impression, where it was sort of block, 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 bang. And as you say, Vishmi at the other end was doing sort of Gavaskar in the 1975 World Cup. And it didn't look like great. But like, I think when we're talking about intent, you know, we're not talking about trying to hit every ball for 6. It's like, where are the gaps where I can find ones? How can I manipulate strike? Are there areas where I can go over a fielder and score an easy boundary? And I think that it's difficult watching when you feel like those thought processes aren't happening, and when it's just kind of like block, block, wait for a bad ball and then try and put that away. And I do think that you've got to be a bit more proactive. But look, pleased to see Vishmi get 40. I hope it's a springboard to her finding a bit more form and confidence. Pleased to see her back at the top of the order, because I think if you ask her where she wants to bat, it would be there. And I think also like the right-left combo is a good thing for Sri Lanka up top.
And it's the one thing the place where you can afford it, because coming in, we saw what happened when she comes in at 4. It really is like applying the brakes to the innings, right? Because she takes a few balls to get going. And I think one thing that's interesting is that I think Chamari would bat well with someone who was pinching singles, running, right? Because it's kind of like a little bit like a gale storm, right, with Chamari. I think, where it's like once she gets going, you're not going to stop her, but there'll be a lot of blocks. There'll be, waiting your turn. Running isn't necessarily the top priority for Chamari because she knows she can make it up. But Vishmi, I think 67% of her deliveries faced were dot balls. And that's a lot. That's a lot of deliveries, especially in the power play where you can use that to your advantage. And I think that's the one thing is we've got to see her be more selective about, okay, when am I going to go? When am I going to push? Because I think the rest of the players seemed really comfortable in terms of what their game plans were. Even the ones who got out, right? Harshita knew what she was doing. Hasini knew what she was doing. One thing that I was interesting is I thought Hasini was going to get to her first ever 50 today, but sadly not. She holed out before that. But I think that's got to be a big question is how do we rotate strike in the early part of the game? How do we keep the scoreboard ticking apart from Chamari getting boundaries? I was curious what you guys thought about the team selection. So dropping Dumi Vihanga and bringing in Piyumi Watsala. One thing that was kind of surprising to me is that every time I've watched Piyumi bat, I haven't really seen her do much, but they sent her ahead of Anushka Sanjeevani, who has opened for the team, who usually bats at 7. And I thought that was kind of surprising.
I thought that was surprising. I wondered when I saw that, I'll come along to the team selection in a moment. I'll talk about the batting order first. So I saw that happen at the batting order. My kind of thought was maybe they wanted Anushka to be there for the end, and they'd told, let's kind of pinch hit it, basically. Let's try and finish it. And then I was like, that's more kind of T20 thinking, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's when I realised I was kind of lost between the formats, and I'd fallen in the middle and didn't really know what I was talking about. But I still think there might be something in that where they kind of feel they're not quite sure when they need to send people in. I do think what we are seeing definitely with this side, and Don Meany talked about this a bit after the England game, is you can see what their role definition is. You can see today that there clearly was, let's bat till 20 overs, and then we set a base, and then we go from there. That was quite clear today. So I kind of want to say I want to back them with that. With the team, with the actual 11, again, I'm going to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. I think it's strange to bring in, effectively Dumi's an all-rounder, right? Yeah. So you're like, I think it's a bit strange to have brought her in and then to drop to the next game. But and is it Prabodini got dropped as well, right? Yeah. She's been great for us. Maybe it was the whole drop catch. They just had enough.
Maybe she needed a rest. Maybe it was a lot to have her play Saturday, Tuesday, and Friday. But
yeah. So I can kind of understand. Like I kind of want to at this point I want to bat them. I still, I think today they had a plan. They executed it. Maybe you could argue that it was a bit slow in places. Maybe they left 20 or 30 runs out there. Ultimately, it kind of doesn't matter. It ends up being kind of the best one in practice. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on the team and the role definition there, Nick.
I was sad to see Dumi dropped. I really like her and I want to see her playing more. I was just going to ask you guys, do you think that build a base and then look to explode through the last 25 or 30 is the right approach for this team? I mean, my question is, does Sri Lanka have the firepower to catch up? And I think we kind of at times saw that today. They scored 80 off the last 10 with Nilakshi having a real day out. And I was kind of thinking like, I don't know. I wonder whether they need to be going a bit harder up front.
So I think the thing is, right, is you have to think about where kind of the women's team is at and where women's cricket is at in Sri Lanka, right? So now I think since COVID, there's been about 4 years of kind of continuous fixtures. Obviously, they just had a long break, right? But this team has been together for 4 years. You can kind of almost see when the team re-emerges out of COVID in 2021, that's almost like a year zero for it. I know a lot of these players were there before, but I think almost that's the point where the team starts to become professional. I think actually, and kind of everything before that, you might as well just kind of just go, it's a totally different setup. It's a totally different vibe. But because of that, I think that we're watching the players learn how to play professional cricket. And I think the pace at which we see some of our players improve. So kind of coming into this series or coming into this tournament, I was like, Sri Lanka's batting basically is Chamari, Vishmi, Kavisha and Harshita. Right. If you get anything from anyone else, you're kind of lucky. Collectively, the rest of the batters are probably making up what they're adding. What each of those four would be looking to add. Right. Of that four, you're kind of lucky if three of them go on one day. Right. I think when we come out this series, this World Cup, regardless of when we come out of it, thinking actually. There's a lot more to that. There's a lot more to Sri Lankan batting, right? We knew that, Nilakshi, Hasini Pereira and Sanjivani were able to get runs, but now I'm feeling they're like a little bit more consistent with it. And I think that's just because they've been allowed to be professional cricketers. They're getting actually coached. They're getting strategy. There's people talking to them about what their strengths and weaknesses are. And it's not just happening kind of 72 hours for a game. It's something that they're working on a Monday morning, on a Tuesday morning, when they don't know when their next fixtures were going to be because no one ever books fixtures for them. But I think, so because of that, Nick, I think that's why I think the strategy that they're deploying it's quite important in the kind of long term, because it's going to we back you. This is how we're going to win a game. And we're going to prepare for this game the same way the men's side prepared to play Afghanistan, or the same way Australia will be preparing to play us. And that's why I think it's almost kind of important that happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I take that point, and I think that does make sense. I just kind of felt at times today I was just like, this is crawling a little bit.
I kind of agree with Nick, and I want to push back on the sort of your viewpoint here, Mark, because Nilakshi is 35 and Anushka is 36. Hasini is 30, so she can take those and build on this. But it was so that to me is a bit like, or at least I see it a different way, because these are players who are developing and now finally getting the chance to develop at a time where they don't have that many years left to play. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll play till they're 40. But that being said, I do think there's a lot of exciting talent. I think Harshita and Kavisha are really busy, active players. And I would really kind of like to see them take that 3-4 spot for a while, because I think that would give someone like Chamari a bit more license to be more aggressive up top. The problem is you've invested so heavily in Vishmi, and I do think she's one of their 7 best batters, that you do want to hang on to her. And she's just, for whatever reason, not clicking like right now. I just to bring up the stats, it's I think worth kind of talking about, because I think this year she had a great year last year, and this year she's kind of not taken a step back, but has played a different kind of cricket, or maybe players have been or coaches have been focusing on her. So last year she averaged 36 with 100. She struck at 77, right? This year she's averaging 23 and she's striking at 62. And that's 9 matches last year, 10 matches this year. So to me, that's one of the big issues, is that Vishmi's kind of taken not a step back, but she's been figured out a little bit. And all international cricketers go through that, where they learn how to bowl to you, where you feel like there's pressure to score runs and you're not necessarily scoring them. So we do need to back her, but we can see Nick's comment is very true. There were times where it looks like you could say 280, 290, 300 potentially on the board. But when you're taking up, 60 dot balls in a 85 ball innings, that's going to be really hard to do.
It's such a shame we never got to the second half of this game.
Yeah,
because I want to know how competitive that score actually was, right? Because
for what it's worth, I think Sri Lanka would have won.
Yeah, obviously I think that.
And I reckon come the end of this tournament, we're going to be looking back on those 2 points and wondering what might have been. And I just want to say this, not just about today, but World Cups, there should always be reserve days, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just criminal to have tournaments where teams are knocked out based on matches that have been rained off when they're all there for however long it is, a month or 6 weeks, just twiddling their thumbs.
The men's team got knocked out of the last T20 World Cup because their game against Nepal was rained off, right? I mean, they obviously did lose other games, which they could have won.
Which could have seen them through, but
I wonder as well with climate change. I mean, people in Sri Lanka, when I'm in Sri Lanka, they tell me that you used to be able to predict when it was going to rain. And I do know, let's be honest about this. October is meant to be a rainy month in Colombo, right?
Yeah.
It was a wild decision to have a World Cup at this time of the year there. And with climate change, I think rain is going to become a bigger thing for cricket. Particularly, I think, for Sri Lanka, because of what I'm told is where it's situated geographically, means that it is more kind of susceptible to rain being unpredictable nowadays. So I would like to, there's got to be some sort of mechanism for this, right? So Dom, you've been looking at what this means for Sri Lanka's hopes of getting through, right? It doesn't look good, does it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's all is lost, but they face kind of a hard road and they have to depend on other results. So just pulling up the table here. Okay, so right now, fourth place is India, who sit on 4 points, right? And they've got 3 matches left against England, New Zealand, and Bangladesh. We're sitting on 2 points with matches against South Africa, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And we are massively behind on net run rate. So theoretically, we could win all 3 matches and India could lose 1, and we could find our way in if the net rate creeped in on our favor. Alternatively, if England and New Zealand beat India, then we won all 3, we would get in quite clearly. So it's one of those tricky circumstances where we're looking for India to drop a match to New Zealand and for us to win out, basically, is the circumstance we need. So as we hear ands and ifs and buts, yeah. And the frustrating thing is we didn't quite put ourselves in that situation. 2 rained out matches really kind of hurt. And I do think that 258 would have been a defendable score, especially in a World Cup match. Pressure's on, anything can happen. You're playing at home. Maybe there's a DLS target that's a little bit steeper. I think what they were giving was 198 from 30 overs, which is a pretty, sort of aggressive rate of scoring required. So we'll see. There's still hope. It does concern me a little bit that the weather doesn't look good for the next few days. I wish that rain was not on the forecast, and we don't know how it's going to play out for these other matches. How many other no results we're going to get. Sadly, we're the only us and the teams we played are the only teams who have been affected. Those are the 2 games that rain has effectively canceled.
I want to know what the weather's going to be like on Tuesday, 21st of October, because I think if we beat South Africa and then South Africa and Pakistan are unable to get a result, then in theory we could, because it's really difficult for ChatGPT to work out the no result situation, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, all these things are happening, all these results are possible, but you don't really think in cricket about no result. But I think actually all those games in Colombo, when I looked at the forecast, they're kind of up in the air at the moment, right? Because it looks like a lot of rain over the next few weeks. I left just in time. There's no place that is worse than my blood pressure than being in Sri Lanka when it's raining, because the only thing to do is the mutton rolls and the buffets, right? So I'm glad I left just at the right time. I know Sanes E6S. The sad part is this was our game, man. I agree. It was our game. Oh, it's so tragic, isn't it? Nick, have you got any signs of hope for us?
I mean, the only thing I can say, this is probably not what you want to hear, Marky, is that Sri Lanka probably would have lost to Australia. So the kind of point that we lost today, you could say we gained from that rain delay, and we'll possibly end up where we would have been without the rain anyway. But regardless, it's frustrating, right? And you end up dealing with a lot of whataboutery and what ifs, and just want to see them play a full game of cricket.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is, right, we've talked and been sort of looking forward to this tournament for this team, and to have the opportunity, and this is what I believe this is Sanuda. That's but he said, because he said it's messed with his thing. It's frustrating to see that we've had this opportunity and it's been taken from us from the weather. And then we have another comment similarly.
That's from Lavanya. I met her at the stadium with she's a part of the press pack that's been covering games from India. And
Lavanya, thank you for tuning in.
Estelle.
Yeah, and it's and Lavanya writes, very frustrating to see the host get no home advantage due to the home conditions. Tragic, really. And it is tragic. And I think we should also acknowledge that part of it is the last minute planning of this, right? So coming to Sri Lanka as the second World Cup host happens after the fact, after they've already scheduled the tournament for this part of the year. So maybe this is something, and I'll say this again, the ICC, if they're going to host tournaments in India and potentially have Sri Lanka be the co-host, should think about what season they want to have it in, and always take that into account.
Or we just built a stadium with a roof.
What is this, baseball, Mark?
Well, it could be, right? I think potentially with rain being so unpredictable in Sri Lanka at the moment, that maybe, they're meant to be building a stadium in Jaffna. Maybe they should consider having a retractable roof from that. That's like that's a serious comment, right?
But someone just needs to get the ICC a weather app. Like last year we had a T20 World Cup in a hurricane season in the Caribbean, and now we've had this in the space of a year. It's just mind-blowing planning.
Yeah.
Sanuda, right? Oh man, this is so frustrating. This is way worse than losing. I kind of agree with that. This is it's frustrating. It's so annoying, isn't it? Lavanya has written the Marvel Stadium with the roof in Melbourne was panned quite a bit, but for side conditions, wasn't it? This past BBL. Yeah, I also, so I've been to that stadium and I've watched the Big Bash there, and I've watched rugby there as well. The other thing about that stadium in particular, I don't know why, but it gets incredibly hot. When I was there a couple of years ago, the wicket keeper, whose name, it wasn't Alex Carey, I can't remember who was keeping wicket, but one of the wicket keepers basically just dropped and fainted from heat exhaustion.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it gets absolutely incredibly hot there, and it's that kind of dry heat which you obviously don't get in Sri Lanka. But yeah, I think maybe the way forward is going to have to be roofs. at some point. I'm being quite serious. I don't know how SLC will find the money for it, but I think they might have to do it. There's two other pieces of kind of, I'm going to say, wider Sri Lankan sports news, because we've been talking about the Sri Lankan football team a bit on this show last time. They were playing their return fixture against Turkmenistan for the Asian Cup qualifying, and they lost that 2-1. I'll give you my kind of take on that. I think it's incredibly difficult to fly to Central Asia from Sri Lanka and expect them to get a result.
Yeah.
And especially because Turkmenistan are a pretty reasonably developed side and have been together for a while, where Sri Lanka just kind of fly in like the Avengers from all over the world about 72 hours before kickoff and hope for the best. But I think that more or less puts to bed any hopes we had of qualifying for the Asian Cup. That's fine. We'll go again in 4 years' time, hopefully with some a team that is maybe slightly closer to a few more players slightly closer to home. I say that obviously as a Sri Lankan border raised in London, but maybe it would be nice to have a couple of local players in there. And the other bit of news that kind of filtered through today is DDS, or was that yesterday? DDS and Barnica and Rishan Halambage have been called up to some sort of provisional T20 squad, practice squad, ahead of the tri-series that should be going ahead in a couple of weeks' time in Pakistan, right?
Yeah, the two other guys, Dushan Hemantha and Ishan Malinga. So it's a 22-man provisional squad. So it's got the 17 from the Asia Cup, plus those 5. Obviously, some good, some bad in there. Like, I love to see Vishen Halambage. I wonder if he might not be a good option to try at the top of the order. And I'm glad to see Ishan Malinga back in the side or around the side, because he obviously is an incredibly talented player. And I think what we see in including Bonica and DDS is that there are a lot of questions about what the way forward is for this side. They have a new batting coach. They have a new spin bowling coach. They're bringing in new talent. They're bringing in older talent. And so I think it's
no body shaming in the comments, please.
Yeah, I think it tells you that this is a side that doesn't know what type of cricket it wants to play. And I think that's a big issue here. Is we just praise the women for kind of knowing their games and knowing their roles. That hasn't come up. And actually, this brings me back to another thing we saw in the women's match from 2 matches ago. When they were bowling, they had up the cards. VE 1/2, right? So Rumesh Ratnayaka and co have found some value in that sort of matchup decoding device, whatever it means. And it's interesting to see the women employ that as the men are moving away from it. So I think you kind of see 2 very different squads in terms of how they approach matches and how they approach the games and what their thinking is.
Do you know what I would love to do? I was thinking about this during the game, is actually when the LPL rolls around, when one of the team owners eventually has to give up the team in minutes before the tournament starts, I would like to see them take Ramesh and Coach Tharindu and all the setup that they've got for the women's side at the moment and put them in to run one of those teams during the course of the league, because I want to see what they would do with that side and how they would do it. Because I know I said this on Saturday, but for me, the women's side is just much more better set up and seems to be a kind of more tactically aware and definitely has a plan of how they want to play cricket and win games compared to the men's side. I know this is a flippant thing, and I know it's a flippant thing to compare the 2 teams, but I just get the impression that there's a little bit more structure around the women's side than there is the men's side, and I want to know if they went to manage any other team, would they bring the same, would they bring the same structure in, or is the structure coming from within the playing group? Is it coming from Chamari and the other players? that's kind of what I'd like to know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Nick.
I think it's a great idea. 100% agree. Like, I would love to see Ramesh and co working with one of the LPL teams every year, and it could only be good for them, right? I don't know. Ramesh has got fairly limited head coaching experience. I know he's worked with the men's side a bit as an assistant and some interim stuff, but like, I think that would be great. And I agree. I think they looked to be like a really tactically clear and sound group. And I mean, just tangentially, I think because of the reasons Dom discussed, that like the men's side doesn't really look to know where it's going at the moment, and there are middle order places up for grabs, right? Yeah. That this is a really, really exciting edition of the LPL in prospect. Not to add a little sprinkling of Indian players, if that news is true. I think for the first time in a while, hopefully there's going to be a broadcast deal so we can watch it. Like, the LPL is really going to be worth watching for people outside of the like hardcore Sri Lankan fans.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is, I wonder, Mark, if you mentioned there's structure, whether it's not just the cacophony of voices on the men's side, where so many people have their like fingers in the pie hole, so to speak, where someone's telling them they need to do this, or they need to do that, or they don't need to do that. Whereas I think Ramesh kind of gets a chance to do his thing with the women's side. And I think there's a lot of value to that, right? Having a coach really in control and sort of making decisions and thinking holistically about what the team's doing is a really important lesson for the men to learn, is that, okay, maybe we need to kind of figure out what works and knock out that outside noise of, let's bring in DDS, let's bring in Bonica, let's bring in this guy, let's bring in that guy. There still seems to be this belief that chopping and changing one or two guys is what we need to kind of be competitive, right? And you have to admire that about the women's team, is that they have a squad they believe is competitive, and they really do stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting when you think about that men's Asia Cup we've just seen. When I look back at it now, I think my kind of the big memory will be Patum's century against India and going toe to toe with India, right? Mm-hmm. And there's in my mind, almost, it's kind of like we finished runners up, even though actually we lost the games. Like, we lost against Bangladesh and Pakistan, right? We were kind of terrible in moments when we needed to be good, and we are dead rubber bullies. So when there was nothing else to play for, we really bought the action, right? I don't think the problem is this player needs to come in, or this player is going to be the silver bullet. The problem's got to be something else around it, right? I love DDS and I love Bonica as players, but I kind of think, and it's we're 5 months away from the World Cup, right? Which
the road to, where are we? What are we on?
It's the road to the World Cup, right? Just remember, those scenes we're all looking forward to: little golf buggy, Rayad Ahmedabad, Narendra Modi, and AKD waving at us all. The worry always with Sri Lanka as the men approach major ICC tournaments is that someone hits the panic button and suddenly, like, DDS is there, Bonica is there, Chandimal's there, Angelo Matthews is there, Jeevan Mendes is asking his wife to hide his phone, like, because he doesn't want to get that text. Dimmoth is wondering who's going to look after his new cricket academy while he's away playing at the tournament, right? Like, and it just feels like that same old, right? It's like circling around the sink, and it's like, we don't need to be like that. We don't need to be at this point. When you look at the talent around our team, and around the squad, we don't need to be like that. If you've moved away from a player, don't back into them minutes before midnight, right?
The problem is without any shred of evidence, right? Like, what shred of evidence is there that DDS or Bonica have changed since we last saw them? Nothing, right? There's no like form. There's no, right? It's not like he went out, like Bonica went off and lit up the CPL and scored 300s, and now he's back in. It's just, oh, well, we'll just bring him back. Even I sent you guys this on our WhatsApp chat. Chundi put out a picture of himself in the nets and said, FYI, not done yet.
Like, the thing is, though, right? I don't blame the players. Of course they want to play for Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
right? If someone called me, it was like, we're really short of players, can you join? I'd be like, forget the fact I'm terrible at it. I can barely see. I'm there, right? If you get the opportunity to play for Sri Lanka, you take it, right? I totally get it. But I think they just need to kind of be ready to have to just move away. There is no benefit at all of us bringing these older players back at this point. DDS, and I hope I'm wrong. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine how nuts I'd go if DDS is the man who scores the winning runs or gets a hat trick in Ahmedabad for Chamari to lift the title, right? But I just don't think at this point there's any point going back to those older players.
Yeah. Should we bring up this comment
from
Lavanya? Because I think this is an important one here. So Lavanya writes, hate the fact that we didn't get to see Mulkey and Piumi in action. Not entirely a fan of how much experimentation is happening in a World Cup. Not ideal at all. Yeah, I was kind of bummed not to see Mulkey Madara because we've been on the Murley end, have been shouting for her inclusion since the beginning of this World Cup, and I was excited to see her. Excited to see her play well against an opposition that she kind of dominated, right? She had a really good series against New Zealand. And to see what Piumi could do, she had a little bit of a struggle with the bat, but she's an all-rounder, so maybe she would have made up for it with the ball.
Just go back to the second part of that comment about experimentation. I mean, I think it is kind of sad that Sri Lanka have had to basically, they're so undercooked coming into it. They're trying to kind of figure it all out as they go along, right? That is a shame. I mean, I suppose someone at SLC, if you tried to question them, be like, why did you set more fixtures up? They were like, well, we knew the rain was going to watch our tournament hopes out anyway, so we just thought, sod it. I do, being in Colombo last week, I was surprised at how few people actually knew that this tournament was going on in Colombo. Like, and on top of all that, I do also think that at some point somebody needs to ask some questions, because I know SLC are basically trying to blame the ICC about how, and definitely that first game against, or that got rained off against Australia, there was definitely people there who would have bought tickets. I know it was 100 rupee tickets, but there were definitely people who bought tickets. I assume they would have been refunded. I don't know. Because the decision to make it free entry was very late in the day.
Yeah.
When I was texting people on the Thursday before that game, people were like, I'm not sure it is free. They're definitely trying to sell tickets here. So that was kind of confirmed, I think, only about 48 hours before. The organisation of this tournament, from a Sri Lanka perspective, has been horrendous. The lead up to it, without fixtures, has been horrendous. The fact that this team kind of turn up and have been kind of competitive, I think, is a testament to the professionalism of the side, because other teams would have just gone on strike at this stage, I think, and just been like, what the hell is this?
But that's the beautiful thing about our women's team, right? They've played through much worse circumstances than this.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have to be, though, Dom, right?
It shouldn't have to be, absolutely. No.
These are just all I want the beautiful thing about our women's teams to be that they win matches.
Yes, true.
Not that they defy all the odds to even be competitive.
Just as an aside, I once turned up to the SSC the day before a Sri Lanka-England test, and there was pandemonium at the ground. And I said to someone, I'm not going to say who I said it to, is everything going to be ready? And he said, yeah, I hope so. And that was the day before a test match.
Could I talk a little bit about my experience in the stadium, right? One day I might even get my wife to talk about her experience of it, but that's a by the side. I was really shocked that when I was there so I went to India, Pakistan, and then I went to the England game on Saturday, just gone. And I was really shocked that there was only 2 stands selling food, one of which was pizzas and the other was noodles. For those 2 games, there was no papre in the stadium as well. There was today, and I noticed they talked about it a lot in commentary. So I think they've someone's complained about it and they've deliberately fixed it as well. When it's mad to me that there's only 2 people trying to sell food there. I know there was people walking around selling ice creams and Milos and stuff like that, but there's just not, they could have done so much more with it, and they decided not to, or couldn't be bothered to organize it. I don't know.
Yeah, Mark would have been doing a food review for you all from the stands.
Yeah, but
the hoppers.
Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, should we wrap this up? Because I think we've been through all the emotions of grief today for this. I'm the most optimistic Sri Lanka fan in the world. I still believe that the rain gods will rain in our favour when they need to, all across India, and when Pakistan are playing South Africa, and that we will get the wins that we need to get through to the next stage. I think maybe the next Murali End we do might have to be on Thursday afternoon ahead of the game on Friday, where we do a kind of collective prayer group. We'll have representatives of all the world's major religions and some of the minor ones as well, to kind of try and make sure that we have all the good juju on our side, and hopefully we keep doing what we need to do and we're able to win games, and then we kind of can get through to the next stage. If you've got this far and you haven't subscribed, there's nothing I can do that's good, or nothing I can say to make you subscribe, but please consider it. We'll be back after that game on Friday. We'll see you all then. Bye.